espresso. And to be honest, I promised Stevie, she got to town, she's been in California with our kids, they're still in school, so she's gonna move out the end of May. They're on spring break right now. And she got to town and she said, "You look terrible." and so I promised her I would sleep at least 6 to 7 hours a night. And last night was the first night I think I hit that mark. But we're rolling. The team's coming together and sleep can wait. I'll sleep in May.
There you go. I like that. We sleep in May with college basketball. That's right. Give everybody, I guess, an update on 30 days, what it's been like. How would you describe everything that's come together the way it has?
It's been great. Hired a staff, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second. And the portal hit, I think 2 weeks onto the job, and the portal does not stop. It is relentless, but it's exciting. And I told our staff, and again, Mr. Alford talked about it in the interview process, I try to always have a plan, right? You got to have a plan so you can go execute. And so my plan was playing the point guard position, similar to football and quarterback's the most important spot. I'm going to start with the point guard. And I told our staff, let's hit the portal, let's go find a point guard. And the first 5 players I signed were wings. And so now this week, we got 8 players signed, we got 2 returning, we had 6 players in the portal signed. Now the point guard is I'm finally getting to it. So we got an official visit right now on campus. We got 3 more lined up this week. There were some really, really good options in the portal. But overall, and I joke with Mr. Ponder over here, he hit me early on and he said, "My son plays at Florida Southern College." And I said, "Congratulations, that's amazing." And it's a Division II school, and I'm well familiar with it in Lakeland. And he said, "They got a player you should look at." And I said, "No, they don't." and so he kept texting me. And no, I think I know what I'm doing. And he's like, "I'm telling you, this kid's pretty good." And then, sure enough, a couple agents hit me. Said, "Have you looked at the kid in Lakeland?" I said, "Kid in Lakeland?" I said, Florida Southern College. So Mr. Ponder threw me an assist, I missed it, bobbled it out of bounds, and I go watch the kid's film, and turns out Kentucky's offering him, Louisville's offering him, he's got 40 schools on him. And so I was 2 weeks late, and I almost missed out on him, but then I found out his girlfriend is a Zeta, and she's a sophomore on campus. And as soon as I heard that, I said, first of all, Mr. Pond, I apologized to him. I called him and I apologized to him, and I said, "I'm sorry." And then we signed the kid. And so Alex Steen is going to be probably playing for us a lot of minutes next year. So thank you, Seminole Boosters, Mr. Ponder. Yeah.
Stephen Ponder, President and CEO of Seminole Boosters, new Director of Recruiting for Florida State men's basketball.
If it doesn't work out, you got a spot on the staff.
There we go, right there. Speaking of your staff, a lot of names that many of us will recognize here. Michael Fly, who was on Coach Hamilton's staff, the head coach of Florida Gulf Coast returns. Gerald Gillian, Amara Morgan. And an exciting new twist in this era, Terrence Mann named Assistant General Manager as well, which is new and different, but it's something we're seeing, a trend that's growing. It's great to see Terrence and his passion for Florida State back within your program.
Yeah, and it's been exciting to build a staff, and I've helped Mike Brown at the NBA level build a couple staffs, and I've been around some great coaches that have built unbelievable championship level staffs. So just as a young coach, it was fun to get the grips on your own staff, and I said 2 things, because you spend so much time with these guys, so you got to get along, and the puzzle's got to fit. But the 2 things I wanted good people, that most of which have Florida State ties, which we've done so far, and then I want real competitive guys that want to get on the floor and they want to sweat with the guys and they want to win, right? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Fortunately, we've had a lot of good relationships of ties through, but like Michael Fly was here when I played here, so I knew how hard he worked. I'd seen his connectivity with the guys. Gerald Gillian is a Florida State grad, even though he wasn't part of the staff. I knew him. He was in school when I was on campus, and his grassroots connections and his family have been incredible. So go down to Chris Kent, another one of our young assistants, was a graduate assistant under Leonard Hamilton before he went to the NBA for 7 years and worked in the NBA. So there's a lot of ties. And then as we were going through it, a few guys, Steph Curry, who I coached in Golden State, became the assistant GM for his alma mater in Davidson. And so I called Steph about it, and I said, what's the deal with this? And he's like, well, really, they just wanted money. And And so he gave him some money, but he said is really cool. He's helping him out with recruiting. He'll FaceTime some kids. And the next thing you know, Trey Young does the same thing with Oklahoma. And Trey is Terrence Mann's teammate in Atlanta. And I'd already been talking to these guys just from NBA Connection. So I called Terrence up and I said, listen, I got a crazy idea. Would you want to help us out at all? And he thought I was asking for money, which I was asking for money. But, but Terrence said, of course I want to help you out. That night he was on the phone with 2 or 3 guys, just calling them, texting them, following them on Instagram. And all of those kids, and we're in college athletics, which I'm growing to know and understand every day. But when someone in the professional ranks gets in touch with you, it just feels different, right? It feels that connectivity. But Terrence is in our group coaches thread. He's texting us every day. Well, have you looked at this kid? I got a connection with this kid. I know this coach over here. And so he's literally part of our coaching staff while he's playing in the NBA. And in that role, he's been so valuable, not only for just connecting all these recruits, but Terrence is the type of kid we want, right? And so he knows that I was a bad player. I would not have liked to coach myself.
Come on.
But no. But I was on some really good teams, and I knew how to execute my role. Terrence was a much better player, but similar to me, he was never the best player on Florida State's team, and he's played in the NBA for 6 or 7 years now, and made a ton of money just knowing his role and knowing how to execute and knowing how to compete. But the reality is we want more guys like that. We want more guys that can show up with a great attitude, that work hard, that have high character, and they represent what a Florida State athlete should be. And so he knows what we're looking for, and he's helping us in a lot of different ways.
Very exciting, to say the least. No doubt about that. Speaking of your guys, let's talk about the roster that you have assembled here to this point. 2 guys on last year's roster return, which is extremely exciting. Young guys, A.J. Swint and Alir Malouk. And as you mentioned, you've been hot in the portal and trying to bring in the right guys to fit the style of play that you want overall.
Yeah, to start, and I'll preface this, Coach Hamilton is like a second father to me. I love that man to death, and he's been super helpful, along with Michael Alford and Ponder and all these guys in my transition to become the head coach. And when I sat down with Coach Hamilton, and then after that sat down with every single player on last year's team just to get to know them, it was like speed dating, right? You're trying to get to know their character and how they work and what they're into. And the reality is I have an idea of how I want to play, right? And not everyone fits it. Similar to Coach Gus and his offense and Norvell, not everyone fits the style I want to play. And so you got to watch as much film as you can on these guys and talk to Coach Hamilton and their previous staff, but get to know them and get to know if it's going to work. And the reality is, because these kids played at Florida State, I want what's best for them. And sometimes what's best is not staying here. And so for a lot of guys, we had to have those tough conversations of your best home might be somewhere else. But the reality is, when I sat down with AJ and Alir, they had those characteristics, not only their age, their youthfulness, but their energy and their character of, man, I could really help mold these guys. And you know, they have more potential right now than production, but I'm super excited about both of their paths, and I truly think both of them could play professional basketball one day.
That's really exciting. Very cool. Can you give everyone a little bit of an insight, style of play, what you want to, I guess, what type of play will we see on the floor from your teams, for what you can best tell us right now?
Yes, it's going to be a little bit different. Obviously, I'm coming from the NBA, so I only know one way, and that's a professional way of. It's going to be a ton of pace, a ton of space, a lot of three-pointers, a lot of attacking the basket. It's going to be almost a chaotic, frenzy style of offense that is full speed every single play. And I was joking with our staff. I went to the ACC tournament, and again, this is no disrespect to the former team, but I went to the ACC tournament. I think we lost 57-53. And right around there. I could be off. Don't let details get in the way of a good story.
That's right.
So I walked away from that game, and I'm thinking, if we score 53 points in a half in the NBA, it's a bad half. And that was the entire game score. And now I'm not saying we're going to bring that level of basketball to Florida State, but I sure am going to try. And it's going to be a lot of points. And now I'm not against defense. I was defense coordinator with the Sacramento Kings. But our offense is my baby, and I am bringing in a lot of firepower both on the coaching staff and our roster to get that done. So it's going to be a little bit different.
There we go. Fired up. Can't wait, right, to see Loucks and a new era of Florida State men's basketball beginning this upcoming season. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy, and thanks again for being here tonight, Coach.
Thanks so much. Go Noles.
There we go. Luke Loucks, everybody. Thanks, brother.